Khalil, you have a new book out, The Condemnation of Blackness. I haven't received it as yet, but I do plan to read it at my earliest opportunity. Having said that, how do you see your role moving forward at the Schomburg, particularly as it relates to a younger, digital-aged, information-savvy generation?
Sure. Well, for me, it's important to connect this younger generation to a sense of historical awareness. We live in a time that people have been declaring for almost 20 years has been called the end of history. This was a sort of famous, controversial book that came out about 15 years ago, 20 years ago. And the basic premise was that capitalism had reached the mature stage and that no competing forms of the economy would rise up like socialism and communism. Why does that matter? It matters because the analogous situation facing young people, particularly African-American and Black immigrant children, is that people think we've reached the end of the necessity for talking about race in this country.
Right.
So one of the challenges that I have in a post-civil rights moment, like a post-Soviet moment, is to giving young people the tools so that they can investigate for themselves where we are in this historical moment, rather than accepting what is the convenient messaging of, for many people, a post-racial era. And in that regard, to me, the work of the Schomburg is even more important right now than, say, it was in the 1960s and 70s, where no young person off the street would ever question whether or not race still mattered in America, or whether Black History Month was still relevant. Those are questions that young people today many of them are actually struggling with.
Right. And I just want to say, it strikes me as, there's this sort of idea or conventional wisdom that to talk about race is to bring up subjects that are contentious. However, culture can be informed about an ethnic group or a people's struggle without it having to result in a fight.
Mm-hmm. Well, in fact, not only is that the case, but we are surrounded in this country and in the rest of the world with powerful historical narratives. The problem in the United States is that this country tends to want to privilege certain narratives over others.
Right.
And so the simple fact that there is no United States, there's no great republic, there's no wealth to build upon so that America could become the superpower that it is without slavery. Now, that's not making excuses for anything in particular. That's not being negative. It's a simple economic fact.
Right.
And so we have
free labor.
Well, it wasn't free and completely.
Right, yeah. No, that was a horrible pun. Right.
But the point is that we've reached a moment where I would argue two generations of young people today and their parents, and I include myself as one of them. I just happen to be a professional historian. But for people who aren't professional historians, there's a lot of wondering, well, why do kids need to know about slavery today? It makes them uncomfortable to think that one day they, back in the day they might have been enslaved or that their ancestors were. So I need to use the best social media available, the best digital technology to not only reach out to young people, but to engage them when they actually come to the center itself, so that they walk through the doors and that they have the most innovative technology, lots of buttons to press. I'm the father of 3 young children, 5, 9, and 11. And trust me, I know the difference between looking at a photo on the wall or a huge projection of colorful, rich images surrounded by sound of the same thing for young people.